When we first started, we had a single product that was the container gym. Fast forward now, our product line is diverse as everything from a $40 kettlebell all the way up to a $5 million facility. For us, the most important thing has been having deep relationships with our customers, really focusing on serving them and have a talented team behind us that allows us to bring their ideas to life.
Welcome back to the Fitt Insider Podcast. I'm your host, Joe Veneri. Today I'm joined by Mike Taylor, co-founder of BeaverFit North America. In this episode, we talk about manufacturing fitness equipment for commercial and military customers. Mike explains how his time in the Navy and experience at TRX led to starting BeaverFit. And we explore untapped opportunities in outdoor fitness, from community gyms to boutique studios and more. Let's get into it. Hi, Mike. Welcome to Fitt Insider. Thanks for joining us.
What's happening, Joe? Thanks for having me today.
Yeah, man. Excited about this conversation. I think from, connecting offline and keeping up on social media and just in general, a big fan of everything that you have going on and excited to learn more about it and, bring some other folks into that conversation today. But to kick things off, can you just introduce yourself and tell us about BeaverFit?
No, awesome, Joe. Thanks. And, also a huge fan of your content, and thanks for everything you do for the industry. So my quick background, I guess I came up an athlete. I say that I played every sport under the sun, grew up in the locker room and really appreciated team sports and, all aspects of team sports. I ended up landing at the Naval Academy and played soccer at the Naval Academy. Got my commission out of there and did 8 years active duty in the Navy and 6 in the reserves. Most of the time in the small boat community. I'll probably get into that a little bit later. But we established the first unit since the first riverine unit since the Vietnam War, with our other BeaverFit co-founder, Alex Roothouse. That's where him and I met. After coming out of the Navy, my first job was at TRX, the suspension training company. So I feel like that's where I really kind of learned the industry. I was always into, training and athletics and the combination of the two, and was lucky enough that, Alex, the other BeaverFit co-founder, was at TRX already and pulled me along. So kind of cut my teeth there. And then in 2014, we left TRX, started BeaverFit, and established our headquarters in Reno, Nevada. And I personally live with my wife and 2 boys in Lake Tahoe. We're kind of ski bums at heart. So we've built the team around, the atmosphere here in Reno, Tahoe. Love the outdoors. And Reno has been a great, kind of home for us.
Yeah, it's awesome to hear like the background of obviously like the military, performance, sports, athletics, all coming together, getting to work in the fitness industry. I feel like it's a story so often, like a lot of times folks reach out to us and they're like, hey, I love fitness. I was in the military. I was an athlete in college, high school. Like, how do I break into the industry? It's like you managed to line some of those things up pretty well. And then, also parlay that into like entrepreneurship and starting and running a company as well. When it comes to like the day-to-day now at BeaverFit, you mentioned like starting in 2014. What has that kind of journey been like? What's the scale, the operation look like today, and how has everything evolved?
So when we first started, we had a single product that was the container gym. And we knew we had a good product market fit just from our experience in the industry and people wanting to train functionally in these austere environments. We're like, cool, we got the product for that. So we started there, honestly, really small. We were outsourcing everything and just kind of was really kitting everything together. And we landed a few early contracts, and our focus was on the military. And fast forward now, our product line is diverse as everything from a $40 kettlebell under our Gray Man Gear line of accessories, all the way up to a $5 million facility that we build from the ground up and act as the prime contractor, do the excavation, build a dome-like structure, and then outfit the entire facility with everything from strength equipment to recovery, the flooring, the full scope. So I know I jumped way ahead, but for us, the most important thing has been having deep relationships with our customers and really focusing on serving them. in their ideas. We were not the type of company that would sit on our whiteboards in conference rooms and try to come up with the next best idea. We were out there talking to the folks using our equipment, and have a talented team behind us that allows us to bring their ideas to life, and help them win. Has really been our focus. And now we've got that product line I described, and we've got in-house manufacturing with a team of 80 plus people here in the U.S. Based in Reno, Nevada, that are mainly veterans. About 80% of those 80 people are veteran or spouses, and really pride ourselves in that. And domestic manufacturing, trying to make as many things here as possible. And then the company actually started in the UK in 2010, so we still have a strong entity with 30 plus team members in the UK, and we serve the European market through that team.
Yeah, it's awesome when you look at, I think a lot of times I find myself looking at like the different photos of the container gyms and like the setups that you guys have made, and just like kind of fantasizing about like putting some, I'm fortunate enough to have like we just renovated the basement and moved my garage gym into the basement. But thinking about having like a little compound and putting a container gym out there and having the full setup outside is pretty incredible. And there's like this natural fit with like the military, right? It's like, okay, yeah, we need to have some of this stuff on location. It needs to be super durable. Was that the immediate like, hey, yeah, we found this product market fit there, and then just happened to kind of expand into the broader fitness or, community facilities or sports performance facilities? How did that kind of evolution take place beyond just like the military market?
As you said, it started that we were creating this product for people to use in austere environments. And the military, they adopted it in a way that initially we didn't think they would. So they started putting it outside of their office buildings. So instead of only taking it on deployment, now where those service members were working back at home, they were putting it right outside their office buildings. So instead of taking 15 minutes to go to the gym on base or the gym off base, they had the ability to work out right in their workspaces. And eventually, we just took that value proposition that our customers told us in the military and started sharing that ideas with corporations. So now Google has this micro gym concept based on our product that they're putting these container gyms. We also have a shred shed that is a similar functionality of a container gym, but more aesthetically pleasing. Some people don't like the industrial corrugated look of a container, so we adopted that product. And they're dropping these in different places where people can come together as a community, work out outside, and expand beyond the walls of just the fitness center. Because sometimes on these different corporate campuses or universities, it takes 15 to 20 minutes for people to get from their workspace to the gym. And let's cut down on that time so we can be more efficient. So I think that was the first adaptation. And then now it's expanded into mobile trailers and all sorts of different stuff. But the idea is let's think beyond the walls of that fitness center. And where else can we create environments for people to come together and train?
Yeah, it's really cool to see that. When you mentioned, part of that not being a team or someone who's like kind of sitting back and trying to maybe brainstorm and like work things out. You're just like, hey, let's talk to people and see what the problem is, and, bring them solutions to the problem that already exists. With Google, you mentioned like, hey, well, maybe, and even the military, it's like, it's just way more convenient to have it here. What was some of the other feedback that you got, and maybe you're still getting, that have led to, can you connect a piece of feedback you got with like the end product and kind of take us through like how that was beneficial and how it worked?
Yeah, for sure. I mean, we're always trying to expand the capabilities of these little container gyms. And what we're realizing is all of a sudden now people want to train outside, but it's not great to always be in the hot sun. So we've come up with a lot of upgrades to the container gyms or the shred sheds, where now we have the ability to connect two container gyms that are 40 feet apart with a shade structure. So we started doing that, and then all of a sudden the customer's like, oh yeah, it's great being protected from the sun, but can you enclose it and have it be climatized? Okay, sure. We were just love saying yes to things. And we go ahead and did that, and we call those our Beaver Domes. So now we just built one for the University of Health and Performance in Arkansas that is a 10,000 square foot fully enclosed structure that's climatized. And we use the containers as the anchor of the structure, but they also turn into locker rooms and classrooms. And now we can convert underutilized space that maybe would have been an old tennis court or a basketball court is not being used anymore. We drop this on there. We get around some permitting issues, and we quickly create this field house style training environment that looks like a D1 strength and conditioning facility in the manner of 6 to 9 months instead of 2 to 3 years that it would take for a typical brick and mortar construction project. So I think that's one. And then, Joe, the other thing that's interesting about BeaverFit is we also have a whole line of tactical training solutions. So I know this is focused on fitness, but in the military, it's important to connect human performance and fitness with what the service members need to do to accomplish their mission. So we've done a lot of things in the government space where we'll combine the two. So for example, we'll put a breaching door on the other side of the shipping container. So one side will have a squat rack, the other one will have a breaching door. And for folks in the fitness industry, a breaching door means you're going to take a device, whether it be a ram tool or even a sledgehammer, and you're going to break that door open. And the reason we do that in the military is because we try to create the most realistic scenario possible. So you train the fitness side, get yourself in a high heart rate environment, and then go to the other side of the locker and immediately breach that door. So we do a lot of those different things in the military where we combine human performance and fitness with the mission essential tasks they need to do in the tactical environment to accomplish the mission.
Yeah, it's as you're walking through that, it's so much like it jumps out to me just how much it is about solving those problems. Because, when you think about manufacturing fitness equipment, there's really only so many ways you can make a bar. There's only so many ways you can make a kettlebell or a dumbbell. Yep. And because of that reason, there's like no shortage of companies who are doing that or trying to come up with a different white label solution or branding, to make it customized to a different fitness center. But when it comes down to like, hey, how do we take, in the case of like a breaching door, like and practice and drill somewhere and put this to use? It's like, who's going to make that? Where do we get something like that? So it's very natural, like then you stand out as someone who can solve that problem. But even from the perspective of, one of my questions was going to be kind of just like a leading question. It's when you talk about building the climate controlled or putting a roof on, it's like, well, why not just build a gym? And it's like, you answered that with like, well, it's just going to take forever in terms of construction. And it's still not going to provide the same kind of look, the same access, the same feel as like building these container gyms. When you think about kind of walking both of those lines, right? With like, is it a military division that goes out and services these folks and the team is split up? And then the fitness division, do you have a ton of inbound that's like, hey, can you do this? Can you do this? Because I just imagine that if you are saying yes to a bunch of things, which, just as an entrepreneur, as someone who likes to make shit happen, it's like you're inclined to do that. Does it ever get to the point where it's just like way too much inbound and you have to be like, we can't actually do that?
No, we're trying to get better at that. And, as you state in the early days as entrepreneurs, that's how we build the business, right? We got to say yes to almost everything just to get the product out there and establish relationships with partners. And now we try to be a bit more strategic about it. So we have our two sales teams set up. So we have a commercial sales team and a government sales team. We expect them to have a mile wide and an inch deep level of knowledge on our product lines. And then we have a product team that sits behind them. And that product team is really in 4 groups. So we have our tactical group we call special operations equipment. We have facilities and shelter. Those are the ones that are building, these 10,000 square foot structures out of a combination between containers and tension fabric structures. And then we have human performance. So those product groups sit behind the sales team. If a sales team member gets someone on the hook and say, hey, I need a rappel tower for my military unit. So, okay, great. Here's your product engineer, and they're going to sit side by side with the sales rep and the customer to go through those requirements. Or on the commercial side, okay, I've got somebody that wants to build an outdoor training complex. Great. That sales rep facilitates a call with our product team. We have a questionnaire that go through all the requirements, and then our engineers produce a rendering and then a proposal for that sales rep, and they'd run it through the procurement process. But it is challenging for our sales reps because we have this growing product line. And then we're always trying to do new stuff as well. So we finally established a go-to-market process about 18 months ago, where all these new ideas come into a process. We attempt to prioritize them. My ops folks would tell me that I'm not very good at prioritizing them. But we attempt to prioritize them and strategically make decisions about which ones we're going to expend resources towards to bring to the market and scale. But that is a very new process for us. We're getting better, but lots of room for improvement about how we prioritize and say yes to the right things instead of always saying yes to everything.
Well, I mean, at the end of the day, it's a good problem to have, right? That you have folks coming to you, they want to work together. You're having to figure out if you can or how the best way is to put some of these things into production. And I'm sure making a transition a little bit here, changing gears, like that has something to do with COVID, where you couldn't work out inside. Obviously, a lot of places and people were shifting to exercise or creating at home gyms, and even studios and fitness centers like setting up outdoor gyms that were super successful. So, opening people's eyes to like what was very obvious, like, hey, we can do a ton of this outdoors already. And then kind of complicating things, you potentially run into supply chain issues with raw materials and manufacturing and certainly shipping, delivering some of these things. So maybe can you just walk us through what that last 2 years were like, good and bad, and kind of how that has impacted where you are now?
No, 100%. I think, on the COVID stuff in the commercial market or, outside the government, a couple of years ago, pre-COVID, we planted our flag. We said, hey, we want to focus on outdoor fitness commercially. In the military, we try to be everything to everybody because we've got some contract vehicles and whatnot that enable that.
Mm-hmm.
But we knew it wasn't necessarily scalable in the commercial market. So we said, hey, we want outdoor fitness. And everyone was kind of skeptical in the beginning. And then COVID happens. It's like, whoa, okay, we need this stuff quickly. What's different? Stuff like that. So it definitely helped us grow commercially. But the other thing that's really helped us, and I don't want to say it's been more substantial than the outdoor fitness side, but it's been the supply chain. So with a lot of these boutique fitness franchises, they were relying on manufacturing from overseas. COVID and the supply chain issues that happened as a result of it really cut that off. And we saw all of a sudden a ton of people coming to us because like, oh, BeaverFit makes stuff here in the US. Maybe they can help us solve our challenges that we have with supply chain because everything was coming from overseas. And we started developing relationships with some of these folks and we're able to quickly prototype and manufacture their products that we're getting from overseas, make them at scale to the design specs they want right here in the States and alleviate some of the challenges they had from a supply chain perspective overseas. So we have this growing arm of partners where we're making all the stuff for their boutique fitness studios right here in the US. And they can come and see it, give us immediate feedback, and then we make the next prototype. And then all of a sudden, raw materials went up 300%. And that was kind of the last challenge. That was certainly a negative. And I've been telling people, I think that we learned more in the last 9 months to 12 months of doing business than we did in the previous, 5 to 6 years, because we've never been entrepreneurs and business leaders in an inflationary period. And we were not quick enough to adjust, sometimes because our contracts with the government were firm fixed price and we didn't have a choice. But other times, like, it was just things were happening so fast and we didn't have the right key performance indicators to say like, holy smokes, like, that what we just produced in our manufacturing line costs 3 times more than when we quoted it. How can we mitigate some of that stuff? So we finally have got things back on track, and this year is off to a good start. But last year, I think for a lot of folks in the industry was a bit of a bloodbath as those raw materials were just spiking like crazy.
Yeah, it's also kind of cool to see, you talk about the commercial, you talk about the government, but then getting into some of the group fitness stuff, like within that commercial segment, where you're producing like super slick, branded, really customized. Like the one that stands out to me is like the Rumble bench, which
Mhm.
that compared to a shipping container with like the breaching door or like the rappelling tower is like, how is that able to be done by the same folks at one place? What was that like, just thinking about like, oh yeah, like bringing the team together and saying like, hey, we can actually solve this problem, and like nobody else can do it right now, just from like a manufacturing raw material standpoint.
No, I think you hit on it. It's bringing the team together, and what Alex and Tom and I have done from the very beginning, and our focus has been building the best team ever. when we focus on that and these challenges come in front of us, it's not that they're easy, but you have people that are way smarter than you in the room to help you solve it. So, our operations team led by our COO and the engineers that stand behind them and the folks that lead our procurement and planning departments do an incredible job of a very difficult task, which is, to your point, running a mass manufacturing line at the same time as running a custom line. That is a huge challenge. Most companies are either custom or they're mass produced. And, we've built out our team and our facility so we can shift back and forth between producing, 250 rumble benches at a time to then shifting and building a custom rappel tower or range solution for the military. So it's painful at times, but, our focus has been on building that incredible team that can take on those challenges.
Yeah, it's super important that the team building perspective down that path. And maybe like a two-part question with that and the ups and downs. You see companies, especially in like the fitness tech space, who are like, pushing all in with the demand at peaks and maybe overreaching or not executing certainly to the forecasts, and now making a bunch of cuts at the same time, especially from like a manufacturing, like manual labor side. It's like you hear everyone, it's crazy difficult to find folks to work to do some of these jobs. How have you been able to navigate like the up and down demand by saying like, hey, we want to be able to meet this demand where it is now, but also where is it going, and then being able to hire to keep pace with that?
No, for sure. We are lucky because a lot of our stuff is made to order. So when it comes to the risk of inventory that some other folks have struggled with and having excess inventory, we are able to educate our customers that if you want something custom, it's made to order and lead times are long. No one likes a long lead time, but what that has been able to do for us is mitigate our risk of inventory. So that's been really nice, is we don't have to carry a lot of inventory because most of the stuff going down our line is already sold. When it comes to the team, we have this strategy where we know what our internal capacity is, and we are continuing to kind of step up that internal capacity, but we try not to have it spike. So we know what we can do internally, and then we have an incredible network of partners that can make certain components of us, and that's where how we scale. So when we reach our internal capacity, we've got this network of partners. Hey, great, I need you to make these 50 parts for us. So we kind of account for the spikes via those partners until we know that's the new normal, and then we'll build capacity for that new normal when it's time. So it's almost like building the team. Not only do we have a great internal team, we have an incredible network of partners on the manufacturing space that allow us to outsource things when we reach our capacity.
Yeah, super smart. Maybe one more question down this path of like, when you think about the pre kind of COVID and now where things are heading, it's like the idea of like the outdoor exercise and building some of these facilities is like really attractive to people. It's like consumers really enjoy it. They like the idea of being able to mix up their training. They like the idea of obviously like being in the sun while doing some of this. And it just gives a level of flexibility for some of the locations that like they previously didn't have before, like we talked about. But then pre-COVID, it was like this, the outdoor fitness, at least when it relates to like some of the equipment, it was, you saw like different communities or municipalities like putting in these gyms that like people don't really use them, or it doesn't seem like they're getting used. But at the same time, there's this missed opportunity to like bring exercise and equipment and physical activity to the masses. Do you look at that and think like, is there a solution for that? Is it just a matter of like, at the end of the day, there's nobody to pay for it from like a community local perspective? Or is it like, is there a world where we could just have a bunch of container gyms basically like, or do we need like a billionaire, right? Elon Musk or Mark Cuban, somebody like that to like fund, hey, let's put these everywhere. Let's teach people how to use them, give them access to the gyms and physical activity. Or maybe it's just like a passion project or idea of mine that's not like super realistic.
No, it's interesting, being out there helping the South Beach, Miami Parks and Rec. They've been an early adopter of this model, and they took a chance and they put two. Well, they started with one, and now there's two container gyms at Loomis Park in South Beach, and actually Ursa was just there, and I was able to go work out, and I'm just standing there, and at 7:30 in the morning, the lifeguards come and unlock that. Those two container gyms. And I think we might have posted a video on it. People just come out of the woodwork and they're coming there to train. and there's personal trainers using it with their clients. There's this one guy, Train Outside, is his Instagram profile. He's coming up with such unique ways to train on our products and bring it to life. So I'm talking to people. I'm like, hey, like, what's going on here? Like, guys, this is the community. These container gyms that the Parks and Rec department provided has really established a community here. And they even tell stories about when tourists are coming by, in just their regular beach clothes, they'll double take and then they'll run back to the room and grab their workout gear and come out and train. And I don't know how to scale it, but it's interesting seeing the impact that has had on the community in South Beach and how it's brought people together. We at BeaverFit are always focusing on the usership of our products. The last thing you want, to your point, is somebody investing in it and not sitting in an open field and no one using it. So we're have some new team members, a gentleman named Chris Frankel, that is great at bringing products to life, through simple education. So we're working on some content that we're going to combine with our products because, we want people to use it and get value and build community. And it's great that it happened organically in South Beach, but we can't depend on it happening organically. We got to be a little bit of a forcing function around it, but it's a great case study down there for sure.
Yeah, it is. It's really interesting to have that and like to be able to point to that and say like this is what it looks like, the potential when it's executed super well. Yeah, I guess I'm just like I said, like personally hopeful that someone can figure that out in a way where it's like you have in some ways the YMCA who's done a phenomenal job of like cultivating physical activity, but also like community and health in different locations around the world. But when it comes to just somebody with a barbell or kettlebells and dumbbell and learning the basics of like compound movements, it's like where can you go to do that if you're not going to like a CrossFit or some other place like that?
It's access. We got to figure out the access. And I think to steal some other people's words, there's fitness deserts out there, and that's what we think is unique about our product is it can go in these places that could be considered these fitness deserts where there's not Equinox and Rumble, and would never think to open something up there and train the folks. Well, yeah, we can drop something there, and there's networks of trainers that we could tap into to provide that sort of instruction. So we've always had that idea. It's just about getting to the execution of it, or finding the right partner would probably be the idea to execute something like that. But we do feel like our product is unique where we can put it in some crazy places.
Yeah, huge potential, and maybe something we can keep jamming on offline. It's
I
like I
like it.
said, something I'd like to be a part of bringing to life. Yeah, zooming out as we get towards the end of the conversation, I would just be curious to hear your general thoughts. There was the ups and downs of COVID. There was, gyms are dead, and now everything's going to be at home or digital. And obviously, there's a correction happening now. You kind of sit maybe outside of this direct kind of trends and impact and maybe like headline reading about what is or isn't happening. But do you have a sense of where things are going and what that means for the broader industry? Or do you just sit back and think like, hey, we have to execute. It doesn't matter what happens. Like we need to do our job.
No, we do. And just to kind of separate the two markets in the government space, I think is a really interesting time in the industry because, we're passionate about this idea that the individual service members are being designated as weapon systems. And I know that sounds pretty aggressive to some folks, but the exciting thing is we spend a lot of time and energy maintaining our weapon systems. And now that same focus is being put into the individual service member as that human weapon system. And how can we build facilities that facilitates increased readiness and lethality for that service member? And that's where I think the rest of the industry can really come together and support that, because with all of the biometrics that can be collected via different wearables and technology, and how you can analyze that data for commanders to make decisions is really exciting. And, just to give a quick plug, we're doing an event for the Army at a trade show called the Association of the U.S. Army, where we're trying to bring people together from the human performance industry to speak to one voice to the Army and say, hey, we can help you figure this out in the same way you have strategic partners that maintain your aircraft and your tactical vehicles. You can have those same strategic partnerships with folks in the human performance industry. So I'd say in the government space, it's really exciting to see the focus being put towards the service members as weapon systems, and the same resources that we use to train professional athletes at the highest level being brought to bear. Outside of that, we understand why people train the way they did in COVID, but from my personal experience, what I loved about training, and it probably comes from the team sports side of it, is the community. Like a workout by yourself is okay, but let's be honest with ourselves. We don't necessarily push ourselves as hard as we could. Even when the instructors, on the screen yelling and screaming at everybody to pick it up the pace and do this or that. It's about, your workout buddy or the expanded group of folks that you see when you go to the gym. So to us, it's about community building and bringing people together. And we feel like naturally folks are going to come back together to work out and train because that's the only way you can get better is to challenge each other. So we foresee, that community always being the baseline of the industry and how can we bring people together in different ways, in different spaces. It's kind of how we view it.
Yeah, I think that's really well said. And regardless of how things play out, you guys are uniquely positioned to serve a diversified customer base. So back to the original point, it's about listening to problems, solving them for customers, and just continuing to do that at scale, which it sounds like, the biggest problem right now, it to some extent is keeping up with demand and all the different kind of asks that you get. You mentioned the Army event coming up. Wrapping up here, is there anything else that we should look out for? Whether it's events or kind of launches, products, developments that are coming down the pipeline, you want people to keep an eye out for?
Oh, it's interesting. I think the Army event's a key one. We're going to be putting a lot of effort in that because we're passionate about that project to support them. Other than that, with our new line of these trailers, so the container gyms are awesome, but they're not as portable as they seem because you need a forklift and a flatbed to move around a shipping container. We recently launched a line of trailers that is the same features as the container gyms, but all you need is a vehicle to tow it around and you can go to your customers, whether that's a corporate site, a high school, or a park, and bring that capability to them. We're going to be launching a smaller version of that later this year that I'm really excited about because the ones we have right now can be a bit intimidating. You need an F-150 to tow it, and everyone loves a big truck, but not everyone has that. So we're coming out with a smaller version of that later this year that we're really excited about. That, to your point, I think is going to give us access to a more diversified customer base and help people really accomplish their goals of training in places they never thought possible.
Yeah, very cool. Definitely keep an eye out for that. Maybe get one to tow behind the truck when those come out.
Yeah, I like it.
Yeah, and just for folks that have been listening, we'll get you out of here on this. They're interested. They enjoyed the conversation. Want to learn more? Where would you point them?
Yeah, I think Instagram is always good, right? These days, it's almost like an online product portfolio. So, checking out our Instagram account, we're trying to highlight, our team and our customers on there. So, check out BeaverFit USA and BeaverFit on Instagram. And then we did just do a quick update to our website. So, BeaverFitUSA.com has some exciting content that the marketing team has brought to life there. So, and that's a couple good ideas, Joe.
Yeah, I hope folks check that out. I know following on Instagram, like I said, always kind of looking at the different products and thinking about how I could build the compound home gym of my dreams. So very cool to follow along. And Mike, really glad we had a chance to chat today.
No, Joe, this was awesome. Thank you.